This week's The Rahman Experience is brought to you by the Jacksonville Free Press newspaper, bringing you quality urban news for more than 30 years. PMP Nutrition and Supplements. Want your summer body? Go to pmpnutrition.com. They'll get you exactly where you need to be. Heart SEO, internet marketing and web design for those who are ready to make their business soar. HeartSEO.com. And now, one of the hottest podcasts in the country. It is the Rahman Experience.
Just like on the earth, through death comes life.
There is something in the atmosphere of Everwater's college.
What about vaping and the effects on the lungs? It was a symbol of we can.
Rahman was a man of the city, you hear me?
You're inside the Rahman Experience.
It's the Rahman Experience.
The Rahman Experience.
The knowledge that he dropping, most dismiss and make you curious.
And we can't mess this up, cause you know he gon' be furious.
He bring the news to you, cause it's the truth, ain't no stopping it. Say you didn't know, well here's the proof coming from
Rahman Johnson, ain't no straight out of Compton. Duval County with that weight that we rockin'. Now you tuned in to the
Rahman Experience.
Facebook family and friends, I hope you are well. How are you? And welcome to this edition of the Rahman Experience. We are live. That's right. This is a live streaming show. It's taken forever to get into this meeting, but here we are. Thank you so much for being a part of this with me. And I'm so excited to bring into you one of the top legislators in the state of Florida. Now, usually when the show starts, I bring the news, and on the recorded version, you'll know some of the news that's going on around the world. And I do want to share with you, before we really get into the show today, there is breaking news happening around the world. And if there is something that happens, especially as it relates to COVID-19, I'll make sure to stop the show and bring it to you because we want to make sure that you are as informed as possible. But one of the things as a former anchor, and I guess still anchor, reporter, that kind of news person, I really wanted to make sure that I bring news in a way that we could all appreciate. And by the way, speaking of breaking news, you may remember Linda Tripp with the Clinton investigation. She just passed away. Just got breaking news that Linda Tripp has died. I'll bring you more details on that. And of course, the breaking news of the day is that Bernie Sanders, who was a one-time candidate for the Democratic nomination for president of the United States, has also dropped out of the race. That's a big one. So we'll talk about that and so much more. But first, the big news around the world is the coronavirus. There have been literally hundreds of thousands of people that have been afflicted by it, tens of thousands of people killed by it. And it is the news that's on top of all of our minds. And to talk about the coronavirus, it's what we're doing in the state of Florida, which is where I'm from and where this podcast is originating, is my friend, someone who is a friend of Florida and no stranger to making sure that people are held accountable. Please welcome, for the first time, and we've been trying to do this since the experience started for like 3 years, please welcome State Representative Tracie Neal Davis. Representative Davis, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Really excited about tonight.
Thank you. Well, we've had some technical difficulties even trying to make this happen, right?
I'm fun making it happen, I tell you.
It's been fun, but you're here, and that's what's most important. And let me tell you, if any of you who are tuning in from around the world, and especially here in Florida, all you have to do is log on to right here at the Rahman Experience, obviously, but go below and leave comments. I'll be looking at these comments over and over. I'll be sharing them with the representative. There's some comments that have already come through, questions that people had when I announced that we'd be doing the show today live. So if you have comments or questions, especially as it relates to unemployment, COVID-19, all those things, feel free to ask them. So Representative Davis, $100,000 question, I guess, a $1 trillion question at this point. When are we going to get those checks? That's the question. Everybody. I know you're a state representative at the Florida level, but when are we going to get the checks?
Well, you know what, as far, and I'm going to report to you what I've been hearing and what I know. And so I know these two dates to be true. As far as I know, I think the checks will start being direct deposited. The date is April 13th, and then mailed around May 4th. So those are the two dates I've heard. People are then asking, well, how will everyone know my address? Well, they're going to do as far as direct deposit, I think the U.S. Treasury will be putting a plan in place to gain the banking information. All of this is information, of course, is coming from the Internal Revenue Service.
Okay.
And then for the checks to be mailed, someone filing their taxes, they're going to use that address to mail the check to that address. So those are the two dates I've heard.
Gotcha. I'm told as well that there's going to be a site. The Treasury Department will have a site.
Yes. And they haven't put that site, right. They haven't put that site together. That is the plan. They're going to build a web-based portal for people to place their direct deposit, their banking information in, so they can get that check direct deposit. Absolutely.
And the 13th, are we assured? And what the rumors have been going about, and obviously I know you're, again, on the state level, but that we could possibly get several of these stimulus kind of things going down the line. Is that something you've heard of in the pipeline? And are we going to do anything about it specifically in Florida when it comes to our leadership, elected leadership in the state?
So specifically in Florida, we have not had that conversation. Still working out a lot of the details. We're dealing with a lot of money. We're talking $2 trillion going in a lot of different directions. So still working on those details to make sure. But again, have not heard anything other outside of those two dates that I talked about. April 13th for the direct deposit start. But again, still working out a lot of details. And then May 4th for the checks to be directly mailed. Now, the first comment you made was, can we be assured? You know, I heard you say that.
Absolutely.
We're dealing with, like I said, trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
So I would hope we are assured by those two dates. To be honest, would I encourage people to hold their breaths? Absolutely not. But the checks, we do know that will come on time, are those checks that come every first and third of the month. But we do know the money's coming. We just can't say exactly when. But again, those are the two dates I have heard. And if on the state level, if those checks are anything like the unemployment checks, then everyone will understand to just be calm, be a little calm.
Hurry up and wait.
Hurry up and wait. It's going to take a minute. It's coming. It's just going to take a minute.
Speaking of unemployment, I mean, we were going to do this in a different way earlier. So a lot of the technical stuff that I wanted to show, like pictures or what have you, I don't have access to that in this vehicle. But you and I talked earlier, the COVID situation had gotten so bad that the servers on the Florida unemployment website crashed.
Yes.
And so they had to put in new servers, which they crashed. And so they had to try to get them back up again. And then they said, okay, well, we'll give you paper forms. And then the paper forms were then sent to offices around the state. And I looked and I saw one picture from Hialeah where you got people standing centimeters from each other. Forget 6 feet, centimeters with masks on. What are we doing on this level to try to make sure that those people that can electronically get some relief can find a manual way to at least get their name, their number, their whatever in the system to try to get some relief on state level?
It's a couple of different ways people can do it locally. So there is online application that people can download if they have the ability to. I encourage people to do that. But we also have all of the career source offices around the state of Florida have paper forms as well as pre-addressed envelopes that people can just stop by their office and pick up from 8:30 a.m. to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There's just a table, they're sitting outside, and people can pick that up at their leisure, at their convenience. We suggest, I've been by there twice so far, and people are really respectful of each other. If they see someone approaching the table, they wait a 6 to 7 foot distance until that person is done, and then the next person goes up to the table. I have heard that they have asked for some order from JSO because from the 8:30 to about 10:30 period of time, it is a large number of people. So we have to do our best to do that social distancing and giving people their space while they're collecting the information. So we have paper forms and pre-addressed envelopes at the career sources. We can I also encourage folks to come by my office. I have paper forms the pre-addressed envelopes there at my address, as well as FedEx will print and mail the application for folks free of charge.
Let me ask you as well, what was because I know this was something that was talked about, and I'm reading it online, I'm looking at other things, and it seems to be reputable sources. According to what I've read, the state of Florida, obviously not the legislature, but the previous administration, Governor Rick Scott, knew that there were issues with the online system for unemployment in Florida. And the current governor, Ron DeSantis, also, when he came into office, saw that there were issues and they kind of kicked the can down the road. I will get to it later. What do you know as a member of the legislature about that? Like, is that true? Has it been proven? And is that an offense that there's something that can be done about, or it's just like, well, they didn't get to it yet?
Oh, it's a couple of things. Yes, it's absolutely true. There was a report done, an audit report given out that showed all of the efficiencies that the system had. And so we've known that the system was not up to par for a number of years. And you said it right. It has been a kicking of the can down for years. Now we've gotten to a point where we have almost 1 million people trying to get to this system, and it's overloaded, it's overwhelmed, and we're not getting answers. To be honest, when we're calling as legislators, we're not even getting calls back at this point because it's so overwhelmed. I have people calling my office just simply reporting they've gotten into the system. They've received an email that said, if you don't respond to this email to verify your weeks, then what you have submitted will have to resubmit again. We have people that have tried for hours at a time to just reset PIN numbers. We have people that are receiving emails that are saying, we received your email, but your claim is pending.
And this is something that they knew that was an issue a while back.
Yes.
Mind you,
yes.
Well, mind you, statistics say we're one of the states with one of the lowest paying unemployment numbers, 294, 297, something like that?
275. For 12 weeks.
Only 12 weeks. But you can't fix the computer?
Yes.
Wow.
So and let's add to that, Rob. We paid $77 million for this system.
Oh,
so when you have people say it feels like this system is doing what it actually was intended to do to prevent people from actually claiming unemployment, it actually feels like that. And so the question becomes, what did we spend $77 million for? What?
It's mind-boggling, and we have people here. I know, and I wanted to share it, and hopefully we will. A project that you and I'll be working on, giving food to people in the community who needed it, and we'll talk about that later in the conversation. But there are people here, restaurant workers, the gig economy, Uber drivers, all these people that need these weeks. Right. And for them, 275 is the difference between, because no one's getting evicted. I'm thankful to the legislature and the governor making sure that no evictions or foreclosures, all that stuff, there's a moratorium on it. This 275 is difference between going hungry or not for the entire family. And I think knowing that's where the issue is, there's got to be something better. There's got to be a better way to do this thing. Representative, I'm not sure. I think our conversation is stuck. Can you still, I think we may be having a little bit of technical difficulties. If we are, we will interface and reconnect with Representative Davis. I know she has been on conference calls almost every day. No, not almost every day. Almost every hour on the hour during the days this week. So unfortunately, she has to, it looks like technically the representative is gone, but I'm going to work to get her back so that we can continue this conversation. We're back, everybody. Thank you so much for being a part of this experience with me. I tell you, this thing has been quite a unique experience trying to get it ready and trying to roll over and figure out where we are, how we are. Again, thank you for tuning in. I'm Rahman Johnson. This is the initial place we were trying to get to and pull all together, but we were able to get it done. And finally, I was able to get Representative Davis back. She was on another conference call with the state of Florida, but she will be joining us so that we can get back into the experience. So I'm so excited to have her back. And thank you for standing by and taking time. When I tell you this has been one of those experiences, let's welcome again. I'm going to bring her back. This is Representative Tracie Neal Davis. Rep Davis, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. This has been fun, to say the least.
If they only knew what we went through to get back to this point.
Oh my gosh.
We need an award. We need an award,
it'll take another show to tell them.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you joined back in the experience.
I'm glad to be back.
And we had some questions. I know MJ Baker, one of the questions she asked was, what can people do to get involved? Like if people want to help, like she says, hey, I got a job, I'm working from home, but I just want to do more to engage people in the community. What can we do to help?
So is she asking about as far as safety with COVID-19, or is she asking about upcoming elections? Where is she going with it?
I believe that she's saying, and MJ, hopefully you'll jump back on, you can clarify your question, but I believe that she's saying, period. Like, what can people do when it comes to, like, you see your friends and family members out here suffering with COVID-19. Right. I know you and I were talking earlier, and one of your sorority sisters, who's my dear friend and my boss, her mother passed away recently. And regardless of if it's COVID related or not, she's not going to be able to have the kind of funeral that we would have to celebrate her mom. And so we feel helpless and powerless. What are those things that we can do in our community to get, again, actively involved so that we can kind of take back some of our power?
Well, it's a couple of things, I think, just off the top of my head and just talking from that situation that you talked about a minute ago. I think people can stay in touch with those people. They can call, see how people are doing, check in. They can actually volunteer their time at our food banks, preparing meals for our seniors and low-income families, people that are struggling. And those type of things, involve yourself in a farm share or anything like that, to make sure you're social distancing, but also helping out. And again, making a phone call to someone you haven't called, for your boss that you said just lost a parent, hearing from someone on the other end of the phone and may not be, being able to go and sit and be with that person. It means a lot. It means a lot. But, devote some of your time at the food banks around. I personally have taken time to go to Feeding Northeast Florida and help them pack food kits. People are helping farm share, but just being involved. And like you said, people helping people. I think it's neighbors helping neighbors, and just being there and being available and reaching out to see who's in need and who just needs to hear from someone.
Gotcha. And Representative, I know that you have a conference call coming up, so I appreciate you taking time away from all that you are doing because you are in the thick of things right now. So thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions, please feel free. I'm looking at the comments now. Angie Nixon, Connie Ben, thank you so much. Kevin Rogers, everybody that's watching and listening, thank you so much. So if you have conversation questions for Representative Davis, please, now is the time to ask them. Representative, you've talked to you're obviously a Democrat. You've talked to some of the Republican members I know that are in the House, both in the Duval County caucus as well as around the state. Since the Republicans are the party in power, what things do you think they're doing that are innovative and new that have you heard, or are they doing anything at all to kind of help our community, the community that's in need?
Innovative and new.
It's a loaded question, right?
Innovative and new. I say, well, not innovative or new. I would just take the time to talk about the unemployment system. Right now, we need to address the needs of people not being able to get through. Where hundreds of thousands of people are trying to get through every day. And I know the governor is bringing in a number of people to help with taking the calls and processing the applications. And that cannot happen fast enough. We have the paper application out to get people access as well. And I know there's a mobile app that should be out and available soon. So is that new and innovative, I don't know, but it's something that's definitely needed when we're talking about this COVID-19, and let's talk about it.
Yeah.
I think my colleagues have finally realized that the African American community basically will get hit the hardest with this. We are the people that suffer from the hypertension. We are the folks that suffer from diabetes. We are the folks that suffer from heart disease. And so when you are talking about the number of deaths we've seen, many of us know that our communities are going to suffer, African American communities especially, are going to suffer if we're not tested. So it was great to see that the governor has partnered with our UF Health here in Jacksonville to go into some of our more needy communities like Durkeeville, Emmett Reed. So they have 4 testing sites they're going to be visiting this week, and would love to encourage people to go out and get tested. It's free of charge. And we need people of color to go and get tested because we need to know whether they have it. And we also need to gain information, so we have scientists and doctors able to try to pull some information and data together from these tests to try to create some kind of vaccine.
Where will these changes come from? Sandy Smith had a question when we told her earlier today we'd be coming on with you. Sandy had a question, and it said, ask about how the White House plans to handle African-American health in our community. Clearly, you can't deal with what the White House thinks or they're going to do, but how will this change our dealing with people of color that are disproportionately affected in communities of color with health crises? I mean, Dr. Anthony Fauci gave a great minute and a half, real quick talk about the fact that the reason COVID-19 is destroying African-American communities. So the numbers of African-Americans that are in morgues is a lot greater is because of the underlying health conditions that in many cases are not diagnosed, the asthma, the diabetes, all of those things. Where do you think this will cause some change in that when we get back to some sense of normalcy?
Well, I do, Rahman, in the sense of, I think me being an African-American female who is personally affected with one of these underlying conditions, and that's hypertension, I have to be among many of our voices. Our Black Caucus has to talk out. We have to use our voices loudly at this point to ensure that while we're here, you now heard me talk about UF Health, they're going into our minority communities and especially doing testing for our African Americans. Kudos to that partnership, but we also need to not let that be the end of it. So once we get through COVID-19, we do realize that we have to still yell and holler and scream because we need to solve many of these health disparities that are among our African American communities, where it deals with the hypertension and the diabetes and the asthma and the lung disease and heart disease. Those type of health issues affect African American 2 to 3 times more than they do any other population. And so we have to stay in the forefront with ensuring that we have better education and better solutions, and we are able to get people to the medicines and to the health education and the healthy foods they need to get their bodies better and to get us solved for this. So we have to stay on the forefront of it.
And I think during this, because in some ways, we got to look at what the positives are in this situation. And in some ways, we got to find, like, this could be a wake-up call. I know my mom would always tell me if something happened, she says, I bet you won't. I remember a few years ago, and I think you remember the story, Tracie, I was riding a bicycle. I went out and decided that I was going to start biking. And my mother told me, she was like, you do realize you're over 40, right? I'm like, I know what I'm doing, you know?
Right.
And I was riding on the Baldwin Rail Trail from Jacksonville to Baldwin, and something ran out of the bushes, and I figured I could run faster than I could bike, and I fell off the bike. And I came home to one of my mom's. I was there limping and carrying the bicycle, and she was just like shaking her head. She's like, I told you. But it got me to understanding that the things that I could do 20 years ago, I can't do now. So in this way, I hope the positive change in COVID is that we now know that we got to look at these underlying health conditions and go to the doctor more, make sure loved ones get to the doctor.
Right.
Let's talk as we have questions coming in.
Oh, great.
Thank you so much. George Davis just said the same thing. George is commenting, and he said the African American community has to check themselves, get control of weight, make sure you're eating right, and stop avoiding checkups. And we do that. We do it all the time. I know I've been guilty of it. I mean, let me be honest, not going to the doctor now. I'm good. I will tell about it.
Yeah.
I will tell about it unless it's an emergency. But we really got to make sure that we're doing that and talking to our neighbors about it.
Absolutely. This is the wake-up call. This is the wake-up call.
Let me ask, and we're going to jump around a little bit because we don't have you for long. Let's talk about Wisconsin, I believe it is. Is it Wisconsin that did not cancel elections?
Oh, wow.
They didn't cancel. You spent 13 years at the Duval County Supervisor of Elections Office where you oversaw 44 elections, 1344.
You know that well.
You did a whole lot of work before you were elected to the legislature. If you were the supervisor and you were in that area, what do you think these people were thinking about having people? And mind you, got to give it to the people in that state because they were lined up around the block when it came to elections. But I mean, isn't that putting people's lives in danger?
Well, you're probably going to be surprised at the answer. So I think Wisconsin probably did not expect COVID to be where it is now. And so, in essence, trying to not cancel an election, they definitely did a lot of endangering folks, but there were measures I think that they could have taken to make that safe. A number of states, believe it or not, do not have all the accessibility that Florida has when it comes to elections. You can, vote by mail, you can vote early, you can vote on election day, and a lot of states don't have that, many of those abilities. But I'll be the first to tell you.
You recommend now, like kind of going into, is that something you recommend now, like voting by mail? Because some people will say, hey, if I do that, I'm not sure my vote will count. Will it get in on time? Is that something you've had, again, myriad experience in elections? Is that something we should be considering in this state right now, especially in the time that we're in?
So because you have such a great audience, I'll be the first to say to anyone, I've been voting by mail for 5 years now. And so coming from the elections office, I voted the way any new system we had came online. I was using my vote to try it. So when we started with the early voting, I voted early for a period of time just to see how the system works. And so before I left the office, because there was such a tracking system in Florida created to follow the vote by mail ballot, I wanted to see if that worked also. So I've been voting by mail for 5 years, but I'm one of those people who probably has that signature that I sign things the same way all the time. So if I had to say to someone like myself before I start voting by mail, you need to remember your signature, I think I would encourage people to update their signatures if I was worried about that. But actually, voting by mail probably is the ballot that you can track the most. It's a ballot you can track the most because when it is received by the elections office, you can follow that on their website. And if the ballot is rejected or accepted, you would be able to see that on the state's website.
And could go back and say, hey, yes, I need to make sure my vote. I got you. Okay.
Correct. And so you have 2 days after the election to actually even cure your ballot now, which is, fix the signature on it. And so right now, it probably is one of those with the safest ballot out.
I got you.
I hope vote in the comfort of your own home,
which makes you even more secure, and especially now. Let's say that COVID in this space that we're in now, that we are still worried about this in the fall, is do we have any fail safes right now? I know one of the things that you and I talked about when we were preparing for this conversation is that the Department of Elections in the state of Florida recently changed the rule, or not changed, but augmented the rules in light of the COVID situation to ensure that petitions could be submitted electronically. Are there other changes like that coming down the pipeline, perhaps to prepare just in case we end up in this same situation in the fall elections?
That's a great question. So I just posted something today, but the supervisors, all 67, the Supervisors of Elections Association submitted a letter to Secretary Lee, as well as the governor, asking for the governor to extend early voting days. I think the number is from 14, the max is 14 days. They're asking to have it extended to 22. They're asking for monies coming from the stimulus package to pay for postage for folks, to increase and encourage folks to vote by mail, as well as encourage folks to sign up to vote by mail.
Well, I understand that, but I know so many people, and I see some of the comments that are coming here. What is it that what are the specifics? Because a lot of folk, and I know you've seen it, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm looking at what people are saying on social media. They're believing that this is going to assure that the White House, Donald Trump in particular, gets a victory and ends up back president. That's what we're hearing.
Well, the only way, and I'm going to be as blunt as possible to everyone listening, the only way to ensure that Donald Trump is not elected again is to vote. Whether you vote by mail, whether a person votes early, whether a person chooses to wait and vote on election day. That is the only way to win that White House for our Democratic nominee. So with that, I just want you to vote. But right now, I just want you to vote. That's all I can tell people. I don't want anyone to sit in their homes and say, I'm not going to vote because I'm afraid. Because if that's the case, you can pick up the phone, you can call a ballot and have it delivered to you. So there is no earthly way you can get out of just simply not voting. We have too many options. And again, if the statement is we want Donald Trump gone, the result of that is everyone getting up and voting him out. That's it. Gotta vote. Yeah. Gotta vote.
Speaking of it, one of the questions that I asked and we were trying to get to before we took our break earlier, our friend Congresswoman Corrine Brown, who is over 70, so she is in the higher risk phase category, is currently serving time in a federal correctional institution here in Florida. And the sources that I read said that that institution experienced an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease earlier this year. And the Congresswoman, as late as today, there was a letter that was sent to the warden asking for compassionate release. And that request was rejected. So now it's in front of a court. Her appellate attorney is asking the judge to release her because, and as we know, COVID-19 does prey on those senior citizens.
Older.
Those people that are older, those people that have underlying health conditions, of which she has all. So there's a measure right now in front of the court asking the or they're asking for the Congresswoman to be released because she is a nonviolent criminal. What do you say to that? And is there something the state's doing to maybe take some burden off the system for people who could be at a higher risk of contracting the coronavirus?
Number one, what I say to that is test her and release her, allow her to go home. And the reason I say that is because the Florida Black Caucus of state legislators, we submitted a letter to the governor asking that he and Secretary Inch consider releasing people that are over the age of 65, that don't pose a problem to our community, that were convicted of nonviolent crimes, be tested and released to go home. You have people that are, up in age, 65 and older. We're not asking for a lot, but those people don't need to be in a population simply because COVID-19 preys on the elderly, preys on our older population. They are more vulnerable than anyone else. Yes, it can affect everyone. It's taught us that. But we are definitely in favor of our older citizens that are locked up definitely being released, tested first to make sure they're not bringing it out in the community, because we do know that.
Right. But they still have to go home, especially if they're a nonviolent felon. Why would you keep them in a facility when, if they do get sick, it's going to cause us to have more burden on the healthcare system,
Correct.
Which is already good. Yeah.
Correct. And they're nonviolent. What they did was nonviolent, and they're older. So again, we do have a letter out to the governor, pleading to consider allowing those citizens the ability to go home.
Would
Yeah.
that letter also, or would that request, could the governor also, let's say, expedite that for, since let's talk about the Congresswoman. She was convicted of a federal crime, not a state crime. If the governor says, hey, let these people go, does that go over to someone like her who was convicted on the federal level?
So his executive order would only be for people in state facilities, but it could set the tone for our federal government to follow suit. It definitely could set the tone, and it could also set the tone for a judge to see what we've done here in Florida and say, okay, well, I'll consider it for our inmates
Federal.
here that are nonviolent, right, that are our inmates here that are nonviolent and over the age of 65. So it definitely could be something to work in her favor. But I'm
Let's talk
definitely
felons. Go ahead.
no, I
What'd
was
you
just
say?
saying I'm definitely in favor of her being released.
Let's talk felons. I know right now there was a vote that said, hey, Floridian said when people are released from jail, give them their rights back. Let their rights be restored.
Yeah.
There were challenges back and forth. Where do we stand now with people who have been convicted felons and their right to vote? In November, are they going to be able to go to the ballot and cast their vote?
Yes, they absolutely are. The last judgment that was made, the judge overturned the decision and said, we as a state cannot restrict someone from registering to vote because they haven't
No
paid the
needs to be
fines and
paid,
fees.
no poll taxes, because that in
Right.
essence is poll tax. Yeah.
Exactly. So I encourage anyone and everyone where I go, if they are not registered, to register and vote, because they are able to register and vote. And we are encouraging them to be participants in our upcoming August election. And that's another thing I wanted to we didn't get onto it, but I want to make sure that folks understand that I support having our primary election in August and our general election in November. I do not want Secretary Lee or the governor of this state to reschedule or postpone our elections. We have multiple ways people can vote, and so we need to move forward with our elections. We need to be safe with it. We need to be healthy and safe. Safety is the priority, but we need to move forward with our elections. We need some type of normalcy.
In the county you represent, Duval County, I know there were several, I believe, poll workers that were afflicted with COVID-19. So our thoughts and prayers go to them and in their safe recovery.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
I know we've got some great comments. Wanted to make sure that you know your soror. Beverly Harper said, that's my soror. Shouts out. We've got a great deal of people watching from around the country. Adonis Boyd said he's hopeful, like I, that this will change the way that people of color are dealt with when it comes to medicine. So thank you, Adonis. Yeah. And thank you all for joining in. If you have comments or questions, make sure Bill Black says hello. If you have questions, comments, concerns, especially while we have the representative for just a few moments, please make sure that you are leaving your information, leaving your comments. I'll share them with her. Also, Representative, you have given me some information as it relates to unemployment and those forms that need to be turned in. You'll find a link after this broadcast. I'll make sure the link is shared here, as well as my website, rahmanjohnson.com. You can go there directly. It'll take you to where you can download those forms in English, Spanish, and Creole. I want to make sure. So thank you, Representative, for providing us that information and making sure that the community is we're pulled together. Let's talk before we get out of here to legislative session this year. What were some of the major accomplishments of your caucus, and what were you able to do caucus-wise, and where were some of the things that we have some opportunities in, at least for you, next session?
So I had two major priorities this year, and thankfully, luckily, we were able to get those priorities over the legislative priorities over the finish line. One of those priorities was a housing discrimination bill that I was running for the Florida Commission on Human Relations. And I have been running that bill for the last 4 years. And what that bill does allows someone to file a civil action suit without exhausting all their administrative remedies. So they could file a claim with the Human Relations Commission, and as long as that claim is being worked on, they can also as well go and file a civil action suit if they felt it to be necessary if they were discriminated against in a housing situation. And so with that, passing that law this year allows the Florida Relations Commission to continue to receive Florida housing discrimination cases because they have been suspended for a number of years off and on. So with us passing that law this year, they will come from up under suspension, and the federal government will continue to send us $700,000 to $800,000 that go along with our Florida housing discrimination cases. So that was a big lift for me. Like I said, we've been running it for 4 years, but that was a huge win for the Florida Commission on Human Rights. So that was really good for them. And the other one was a sexual battery issue, and it's called Donna's Law. And so this removes the statutory limitations on a sexual battery case when sexual battery is committed on someone younger than 18. And so the story comes, and I'll just be brief, but the situation came to me by way of a colleague, and I ran this with the Republican colleague. So the both of us ran this bill together. His name is Scott Plakin out of Clearwater, Florida. And that's around Orange or Orlando area. And the young lady that is Donna was 15 years old when she began to be sexually assaulted by her music teacher. She kept the secret to herself for about 40 years. And when 40 years.
Oh, wow.
And so when she was strong enough and old enough into her 50s, to decide that she would go and tell the authorities after having some additional conversations and realizing that there were additional women that this music teacher had assaulted as well. The police told her the statute of limitations had ran out. So that was the basis for this bill, and we were able to get it passed. And so that was a huge win because the public defenders didn't necessarily care for it, feeling like, number one, no one could remember beyond a 20-year period, and number two, somewhat feeling like it was extra work for them, basically. But to tell someone that we're not willing to do extra work because you were assaulted 40 years ago, and we don't believe that you can remember what happened to you detail from detail, was not good enough for us. So completely excited about those two priorities, and we got them over the finish line well before the session was over.
Now, you voted against, there's one bill that is somewhat controversial, the parental consent bill, and you did not vote for the bill. What was your rationale for that? This bill basically says that a minor under 18 or under, must have parental consent in order to have an abortion. And what was your rationale, and what were what was that like for you? Because that bill, many have referred to it. What I'm reading here, I see the right to life. I also see pro-choice are saying that it's a bill that restricts the level of the right for a woman to control her body because it then gives that consent to possibly a man. Right. What are your thoughts about that, and why'd you vote against that bill?
So, number one, the bill will be challenged because there is unconstitutional aspects of it. So it will be challenged. Number two, we already have this law on the books, and I wish I would have been even more prepared for you to tell you where that law is, but we already have a parental notification on the books right now as a statute that says medical personnel will notify a guardian or a caregiver when the situation is happening. So for us to take it a step further and now demand parental consent is an overstep. And many of us just simply felt it was, just like you said, a chipping away at a woman's right to choose. I mean, that's bottom line what it is, along with being unconstitutional and already something of parental notification already being on the books. It just feels like if nothing else is being attacked, a woman's right to choose is always on the table of being attacked. And so for those three reasons was enough for me to say no to it. But then it doesn't protect a minor child. It doesn't protect a minor child from rape. And a lot of us know that, a lot of our children do not live in houses and families where they have the perfect situation of the mom and the dad. And some of our children, believe it or not, and my colleagues sometimes don't believe it, that
They
children,
don't understand it because
they
they
don't
don't come
understand
from
it,
those communities.
that
Absolutely. Yeah.
every household is not functional. Okay. And so
Yeah.
some of the time that, we have these situations, our female children are being impregnated by people in the home or someone close to the family. So it
Who
does
could end up? That could be the person that has to give
the consent.
the consent
Yes.
to
Yes,
terminate the
that's
pregnancy.
right. That's just what you did. So if the child is in a home where they were impregnated by someone that's in the home, now you're making the child go and ask permission to have an abortion from someone that impregnated
That could
them.
be yeah.
Right, right. So it just was so much going on. Unfortunately, when we started this session, our governor made sure he made that statement that he's waiting for that bill to hit his desk to sign. So that was a signal to my colleagues that would be something they would push. They would push hard and they would push it quickly. So,
Wow.
yeah, so that's what we dealt with.
Now,
But for those three reasons is why and again, it doesn't protect the minor child. If the child is strong enough, Rockman, to go before a judge and explain, they can actually ask the court's permission to have an abortion. I don't know too many children under the age of 18 that are strong enough to put themselves in that situation to plead
there
their
are
case to a judge.
absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So just a lot of no's in that bill. A few of my colleagues voted for it, but for me, it was personal because it was an attack on the female again. It was an attack on a female under the age of 18, and it's constitutional, and we already have parental notification on the books.
Gotcha. Let me, as I try to get through everything so we can wrap this up. I know
You're good.
The budget, right now the budget has not been signed due to the fact the governor wants the legislature. Am I hearing this? You guys will have a special session because of COVID-19 before the official budget is signed? Yes.
Yes. I'm hearing, we started talking about it a little bit before we left, and I'm actually hearing late May, June. We did put $57 million to the side for the COVID-19 situation. But we know that wasn't, at this point, we know it's not enough. So that $93.2 billion budget, we will go back and probably bust it up. And I have
So
to say,
the budget as we see now, this is breaking news. Wait, the budget as we see now, you believe your prediction, it's going to change drastically.
Oh yeah. I definitely, and before I go into that, I want to just let people know there were some really good things in this budget. I have absolutely never appreciated or thought we worked this hard, but we had things like Forever Florida in our budget. We had the teacher pay raises, money's put aside for teacher pay raises in our budget. We got some good healthcare monies in our budget. We had millions of dollars put aside for some of our state and private colleges and institutions. We had great appropriation projects. I have several projects in the budget, but the budget will look differently as it does now when we get done with it. Yeah.
I'm just, that was something that I really didn't expect. I thought that, they may add to it, come up with some stuff, but I didn't expect it to get like busted up. When do you think special session will be? And is this a special session that may be a Zoom session? I know you and I Zoomed earlier, and it seems like Zoom is the thing that we're doing for everything.
Okay.
Might we see an unprecedented Zoom legislative session this year?
So you know what? When we went back to vote on the budget, we thought we could do it because as we watched the federal government, those Congress people actually called in their vote and did a variety of different things. But according to the Florida Constitution, we actually have to be there in person. So Now, do we have to be in the room all at the same time? I have to wait and see, because I don't think they'll bring 120 of us in the House and another 40 people in the Senate to congregate for hours to get through a budget discussion. So I'm interested to see how we'll do it.
Accommodate that. Not to mention those people who may be coming from South Florida that can't just drive over. Like, it's pretty simple for you to drive up to Tallahassee from Jacksonville, but from Miami
Right.
or Key West or Key Largo, probably want to fly. And
Right.
going through airports at this point is just, you're taking your
Not-
life in your own hands.
Absolutely.
We learned today, what was it, 100 flight attendants from American. I was mind-boggled when I read this story. 100 flight attendants at American Airlines have been diagnosed with COVID-19, and the flight attendants union said, "Oh, y'all ain't wearing masks?" I can't make this up. I can't make it. It was there. The union just feel like, "You ain't getting no mask?"
Okay.
It was mind-boggling. Let's go on the national scale, Tracie. We'll get back to Florida and COVID in just a moment. National scale coming up. You were one of the early endorsers of Vice President Joe Biden. Why?
Yeah. Did you say why?
I said why. Yeah, why?
So I just felt that Joe is an everyday person. I think he connects with our middle class, our working families, our low income families. They see him as somebody that's a fighter for them. He speaks the language, and I like his policy. I like what he has in place, and I know people are anxious to hear who that female VP will be. I am too, but he resonates with me. I connected with him early, and I feel like he's the Democratic nominee to beat Donald Trump.
And speaking of the nominee, I know that today, breaking news, and we said it at the top of our show, that Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont,
Suspended.
Right. He's out. I think everybody's kind of hunkered. Well, I think everybody's kind of hunkered down now. So nobody's roaming around trying to campaign. They're all doing it digitally. But my question, I guess, is now that we know that the Democratic nominee, not that there was a doubt, but the nominee will be Joe Biden. Any predictions from you? I mean, granted, we'd love to see a Representative Tracie Davis on the ticket for Duval, William and Rains High School, AKA.
Oh, wow.
We would love to see you on the ticket. But speaking of AKA, right. But I think you'd be great. Honestly, I think you'd be great. But speaking of AKAs, you're a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And I believe your sorority sister, who is a congresswoman, Val Demings, yes?
Yes.
I've heard through the grapevine, and we talked about this on my show last week, that that people are looking at her, that they're looking at her. She was one of the managers in the U.S. House impeachment trial of President Donald J. Trump.
Absolutely.
And she did such a convincing job that people are talking about her as a potential running mate for Joe Biden. So I give you your other soror, Kamala Harris, former Attorney General of the state of California and current United States Senator, also talked about. Do you have any predictions?
Well, I think you.
That's the hot thing right there, Tracie.
Thank you so much. I think we left out another candidate that I think people would love to see. Stacey Abrams. I don't know if she.
Yes.
Yeah, I think people would love to see that combination as well. Val has a special place. Val graduated from Sandalwood right here in Jacksonville, like you said.
Wolfson.
And so Wolfson. Okay, right. Wolfson. So she's
a Duval girl. She's the Duval girl.
Right. So she's so yeah, we would love to. I would love to see her take the ticket. I think she did a phenomenal job as one of the managers over that impeachment process, and I think she really is beginning to develop into a congresswoman that we will, follow for many, many years what she does. And I think for me, she would be the choice. I think Congresswoman Harris has a connection issue with a lot of African Americans, and so that I wouldn't fear for her as well.
And the marijuana
I
thing.
think
I heard and saw the marijuana thing. A lot of people are like, hey, you put a lot of people that look like us in jail because of marijuana.
right.
Now you want to do it. Yeah.
Right. I don't think that will ever go away. Would she be a great VP for Biden? I think so. But I think that kind of haunts her because she doesn't connect well with us. And we do remember her days as a prosecutor. And so I think my two candidates definitely would be number one would be Val Demings and number two would be Stacey Abrams. And so
Wow.
I just love the fact that he said that he's looking for a woman. I love that.
Yeah. And that he would put a Black woman
Yes.
on the United States Supreme Court.
Well, so how can we not go, Joe?
Well, I don't think it's somebody told me. I had a friend that was Republican that was white. Said, "Hey, that's racist that you want the Black woman on the Supreme Court." No, it's something.
No.
Why are we in 2020 still breaking barriers that need to be broken? That's just crazy.
Correct.
We need diversity. The Supreme Court should reflect America.
Correct. I 100% agree, and we should never be ashamed of saying that. As a Black woman, I'm proud to say that, and I'm never going to be, ashamed or shamed into saying yes. I want an African American woman and man on the Supreme Court. So it's not that we're touting any race over the other, but like you said, we are still trying to break barriers in 2020.
Absolutely. Couple quick things. Matt Sanderson of Atlanta. What's the current law concerning voting rights in Florida? I think Leslie Jean Bart, who is the granddaughter of one of our civil rights icons here in Jacksonville. She said that felons covered by Amendment 4 can vote without paying fines. But you said, of course, she said Rep. Davis is on it. There's also a federal. I didn't know this, Representative. There's a federal bench trial about this felons issue scheduled for April 27th.
I didn't know that either. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you, Leslie, for watching and giving us that detail of information. So we've talked about federal stuff. We talked about state stuff. But you were, and I've known you forever. You're an Edward Waters College graduate. You're a Raines High School graduate. We'll let that one slide. You were completely involved in this community. What's next for you? I mean, obviously serving your constituents. I am a professor at an HBCU, and it's in your district. But what's next for you? I think you were in leadership this year on the Black Caucus and Democratic member in some committees. What's next for you as you step up your level of legislative service?
Well, thank you for that platform. It's as if I paid you for that opening.
You did not.
So I hope this is not news for many people out there, but our current Senator, Audrey Gibson, terms out in 2022, and I will be running for her seat as Senator in 2022.
Wait. Did you just give me an exclusive on my show?
I just gave you an exclusive.
Representative Tracie Davis will be running to represent the state of Florida in the Florida Senate in 2022.
I will.
I feel like I'm back at the news desk.
I will.
Wow.
So I hope your listeners.
Thank you for that exclusive.
So I hope everyone that's listening and watching the Rahman Experience, that's a little tidbit of information that they have and now can start talking about.
I can only imagine. Guys, remember, you can jump in and give me, I think we lost one of our feeds here. I'm not sure if I think you can you still hear me, Tracie?
I can still hear you. Great.
Okay, I think we lost one of our feeds, but I'm going to work to get back on in just a moment. But I'm so excited. You're on solo, so they can all see you, but they can just hear me. I'm so excited, though, to
hey, everybody.
Add that information, to know that you are running for the Senate. While we have it here, and as I try to get back on visually, tell me this, though. What are I know you're in leadership in the Black Caucus. What are those things that the Black Caucus has initiatives to do in this year's legislative session?
So we haven't gotten back to that, but I know one of prison reform is a big ticket item for us. Treating inmates humanely, just because people are locked up does not mean they still not to be treated like humans. So just getting better services, better living conditions in some of those places. We did pass a bill that decreases the number of hours for the corrections officers from 12-hour days to 8-hour days. We gave some money to increase their salary because we know it's a huge turnover. And when you're overworked and underpaid, you tend to take some of your hostilities out on the inmates, is what we were seeing. So we had to create some programs in those facilities to lessen that. And we want people to be treated humanely. So we definitely will. That prison reform is definitely at the top, and health disparities among African Americans is number 2. Absolutely, there's no way we cannot continue to be loud about dealing with the disparities in the African American community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Notice how we're able to jump right back in. I try to be, one of the things I've had to learn with television is that you've got to have contingencies. So I
you did that great.
I think my computer was just so shocked that you revealed that you were going to run for the Senate on my show. They were like, "What? You're running for the Senate?" Okay, I got you. There's also an opportunity for involvement in this community. I know with the petitions, if anybody wants to sign up, because you still need to qualify to be on the ballot this year. Yes.
Right.
And
so
they can be done electronically, which is something that is a first for us in this community.
Yes. So project that we're going to work on, my team and I, we're going to send out the petition by way of email, and I need 979 petitions to qualify by petition, or I need to pay, or will have to pay $1,781.82. So I will pay if I have to, but I would love to have everyone's help in completing a petition, digitally signing it, returning it, and I can get those petitions in and qualify by petition.
Gotcha. So if you're interested,
I would love everyone's help. They could email me at traciedavis2015@gmail.com and find out how.
And if you all are interested in helping Representative Davis, make sure you leave your email address below. We'll make sure your team sees it and can get, allow you to be a part, or allow them to be a part of your Davis experience.
I would love it.
as we figure out how we can help. And thank you for the work you're doing in the community.
Right.
I know, let's see, we've got some other conversations. I didn't know Leslie Jean Bart graduated from Wolfson. She said that she did. She says another fellow Wolfpack grad, Val Demings. Interestingly enough, Leslie Jean Bart said that her pick for VP is Susan Rice.
Oh, wow.
Susan Rice. Yeah. Very interesting.
Didn't even think about her. Okay, Leslie. All right.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Tracie, this has been such, and we've got people are just saying congratulations, Tracie, and everybody that I've talked to says, or that we see here online, thank you for the work you're doing. I know this was a really impromptu conversation. But,
I loved it.
I reached out to you because I really wanted to make sure that you could get information to people, because right now, the one thing I have understood, Representative, is that people are hurting. And the work that you're doing allows them to know that even though you should be hunkered down in your house and could be just on conference calls, you're out here working, which puts you in the susceptible to getting this horrible virus. What level of inspiration, or what would you leave with people to help them, those that don't know where their next meal is coming from, don't know if the job's going to be there when the jobs return, don't know how they're going to pay the bills? What kind of inspiration would you leave with those people right now?
I know it's being said over and over that we're going to get through this. And I just want people to know we are going to get through it. I haven't, I think for me personally, done as much physically as I normally do when in a time of crisis, because unfortunately, this crisis has everything to do with interaction and engagement, and that's what I love to do. So it's very hard to stay a distance and stay away, but I just want to remind people to reach out. Don't get depressed. We are going to do this. We are all working from home, but if they need anything from my office, to still call my office. we will receive the message and we will call back within an hour. Rahman, that's anything from finding food because the family needs food. That's anything from trying to get through to the unemployment line. We have printed applications. We have envelopes. We anything someone electric utilities, having problems with a landlord, and you've already said it. Evictions are on hold. Mortgage forbearance is out there. The small businesses are feeling like they're drowning. There are programs coming down from that stimulus money for everyone. And we missed the piece with talking to small businesses, but
Yes.
I want small businesses to know that there are two programs I want to mention, but I'll just take the time for them to say, go to SBA I think it's SBA.loan, and the two programs are the Paycheck Protection Program that's out there, as well as, and it's another one. I can't find it. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan, right?
Gotcha.
And those two loans are it's multiple loans, but those two loans specifically are for our small businesses. Many of our small businesses have less than 500 employees. There's loans out there, almost forgivable loans. The Paycheck program will almost be forgiven. There are loans,
which means that you keep your employees on payroll during this crisis.
8 weeks.
And yeah. And as long as you do that, that loan goes away.
It goes away. It's a certain period of time within the loan, once they're granted the loan, that they have to apply for the forgiveness. And as long as the monies are used for utilities, mortgage, the business, paying insurance for their employees, paying their employees, that loan will be forgiven as long as they apply for the forgiven part. So that's a loan you basically have just been given money
Good
to.
information.
Right. And again, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So SBA.loan. It's money out there for our small businesses. Please go out. Please apply. Please get it.
One of the things I have said over and over, if in this space we don't leave this position with some new skill that we've developed, something new, like a virtual business, something, if we leave this space without something, it's on us. Like we really got our stuff has got to come out for this. So thank you for that motivation. Last comments from Willetta Richardson. Thank you, Willetta, for watching. Damian Lamar, thank you. Kevin Rogers Francis said, Miss Neil Davis, representative now. It was truly a pleasure working and serving you at the Supervisor of Elections office.
He did.
And,
thanks, Kevin.
Leslie Scott Jean Bart wanted to add in that NEFCA, the Northeast Florida Community Action Agency, is still helping with utilities. And they have
great.
Help. So nefca.org is a place you can go. Leslie Jean Bart, thank you so much. She's been a wealth of information for the show today.
And let Leslie know if she can get us some information. We'll post that out on our social media outlets.
I'll make sure it gets to you. I have the details. She sent it in. Last question, $100 million trillion question. What you watching on Netflix? What you watching on Netflix?
Okay, so I'm old.
You're watching what?
I said, so I'm old. And so I haven't.
So you're not watching Netflix?
I don't watch Netflix. I'm sorry. I'm old. I'm sorry.
You have got to go on Netflix and watch The Tiger King. You're welcome. It will make you laugh. In fact, there's a new provision. I did
hear about that, though. I heard about it.
Absolutely bonkers.
It was hilarious.
Hilariously bonkers.
Right.
I would be willing to watch. They have a new thing. I don't know how it works yet. You know, I'm really big on technology and early adoption. As you see, I still got a lot of kinks to work out with this, but my show is just evolving. We'll get it there. There's a way where we can Netflix and watch like together on Netflix where you can include your family. And so I will invite you through the Netflix thingy, whatever it is.
I'm old.
And then we can watch the tiger thing again, and you will laugh, and you will cry, and it will be funny. So let's do that. Tracie,
I've heard about it.
It's hilarious. Representative Davis, I want to give you your props. Thank you for all you do for our community, and thank you for tuning into the Rahman Experience.
I had a great time. Thank you so much for inviting me and just allowing me this opportunity to speak with your audience. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And for all of you, thank you so much for being a part of the experience. One thing I want to remind you is that in this special time, in this time that we're in, as I take a few moments, one of the things we've got to remember is that together we are stronger. I know you've seen the hashtag all over. I know you've talked to people, you've heard it, but together we are stronger. And the only way that we are going to get through this crisis is if we help each other, if we band together, and as the representative said, if we check on each other, making sure, and that's why I don't like to use that term social distancing. No, for me, it's physical distancing. Let's keep our physical distance, but socially, let's find ways to remain together. Thank you all for tuning in, and take care of yourself and each other. I'll see you next week on the Rahman Experience. Have a good night.
Just like on the earth, through death comes life.
There is something in the atmosphere of everyone's college.
What about vaping and the effects on the lungs? It was a symbol of we can.
Rahman was a man of the city, you hear me?
You're inside the Rahman Experience.
It's the Rahman Experience.
The Rahman Experience.
The knowledge that he dropping, most dismiss and make you curious.
And we can't mess this up, cause you know he gon' be furious.
He bring the news to you, cause it's the truth, ain't no stopping it. Say you didn't know, well, here's the proof coming from
Rahman Johnson, ain't no straight out of Compton. Duval County with that weight that we rockin'. Now you tuned in to the
Rahman Experience.